Hello, Alessandrina here, and today I'm going to talk about forgiveness and how to truly forgive. And how, when we truly forgive, then what we achieve is we actually free ourselves from the pain that we're carrying. So, oftentimes, we will think that we have forgiven someone or something or ourselves. And intellectually, within our own minds, it can appear that we have. And while it appears that we have forgiven, we actually are holding on to the past in some ways. And what I mean by that is that whatever we have recorded about the person or the situation or the circumstance is still being held in place. It's still in our energy. We still have this same interpretation that we had in the past of something painful that can be re-triggered and can resurface as a result of us not having truly released it. So one argument that people will essentially share when a part of them doesn't feel safe, truly forgiving, is that they need to remember, they need to hold on to what happened, otherwise it could happen again. And while it's understandable that we might feel that way, let me switch off the AC, this doesn't help. So when we do that, when we go through that process of holding on to the past and what we've recorded in the past and what we've interpreted, then we're going to have the potential to be re-triggered, and for that to be a reference point in the relationship or in regards to a situation in particular that we haven't truly forgiven. So it's so important to allow ourselves to honestly, vulnerably, humbly assess whether we have forgiven or not ourselves, others, a situation that occurred. Because without doing that deep work, without really diving into our pain and allowing ourselves to feel if we've really released that pain, then we can't know if we've truly forgiven. And therefore, subconsciously, we might have many ways in which we're still holding on to the past and replaying out the past. Meaning that if your past interpretations have not been forgiven completely and healed and processed out, then they will continue subconsciously to be reprojected onto the person, the situation, or onto yourself, instead of really in that process of truly forgiving yourself, understanding, learning the lesson, and understanding that learning the lesson doesn't mean that you have to remember your interpretation. It simply means that whatever occurred, how it occurred, the patterns that were involved, the dynamics, the ways in which things unfolded, and the emotions associated with that, you can understand and map that for yourself, and map that for, if it's involving somebody else, also map that. And then you can trust, have faith that you don't need to remember that to be able to be conscious in any moment with anyone that you're interacting with, to be able to assess where someone is at, whether they are operating from ego or not, whether they are in a child part, for instance, whether they are experiencing negative emotion towards you. You don't need to remember all the times that they've gone into their egos and you've made an interpretation about it and a recording of it. that doesn't need to be there for you to be consciously aware from moment to moment of what happens. So in addition to being able to let go and forgive truly, and not have to remember the past and be free from the past, it's very, very helpful to understand that in that process, when you're doing that, you actually have now the opportunity to continuously forgive in every moment. So not just when you're ready to forgive, when you have the space and time to forgive, and not to say that that's not a step in the process of forgiveness, and that it's not a useful step until we feel comfortable being vulnerable and being able to forgive more spontaneously and comprehensively, and really just choosing forgiveness in every moment. So that choice, that opportunity to forgive in every moment, whatever the other is doing, whatever we have done, to know that you don't need to judge, to blame, to punish, to criticize, to diminish yourself or someone else, as a way to feel empowered or to feel safer in the world. That in every moment, no matter what someone else is doing or what you have done or are doing, you can forgive it completely. And when you do that, you're shifting your energy. So let's say, for instance, that someone or you have gone into a subconscious part and acted from that part, from ego, and that brought pain or hurt in yourself or in them. Well, or in both. If you choose in that moment to completely forgive what has happened, that part, what happens is that part gets transmuted, it gets transformed, it gets healed, it gets integrated. So actually, when you take that step, which is a big step, to choose to forgive in every moment, no matter what arises. If you have a negative thought, you forgive it immediately. If you have a negative emotion, you forgive it immediately. If you say something unkind, you forgive yourself immediately. If someone has a negative thought that they share, you also forgive them immediately. If they have a negative emotional reaction, you forgive them immediately. If they say something hurtful, you forgive them immediately. And when you're doing that consistently, nothing is being recorded. There's no pain that is being added in your process of life and relationship and existence. And so you're now, instead of adding to your subconscious things to work through in the future, where you can sit down and then forgive, not to say again that doesn't have its space and its value, simply to say that you can accelerate your process of no longer recording, of forgetting what has happened in the past and living in the present moment. So the value here is to live in the present moment by forgiving every situation, every instance, every person, every thought, every emotion, every word, every action, every behavior. So when you begin to do that, that is true forgiveness. You are truly forgiving. You are learning that nothing that happens in the reality that you believe in is actually what is happening, and therefore why not forgive it? If someone is caught up in an ego part and they do something from that ego part, what's the point of feeling pain around it? What's the point of feeling judgment about it or punishing it? You can consciously address it and work with it and navigate it and enhance it and essentially improve the process, whatever the process is. That said, the judgment, the fear, the pain, the punishment are not going to help. So what's going to help is to forgive immediately and to see what is, to be in the present moment and to have the opportunity to work online with that energy as it comes up and to transmute it and transform it and to allow for something new to happen. And it's quite miraculous when you start doing that. You'll see how fast you shift when it's applied to yourself, or how fast the other person shifts if it's applied to somebody else, or how fast a situation that looked detrimental and painful or hurtful, how fast you can also transform that and get less of that in your life. Not that it would truly matter if you're forgiving in every moment. It just would the pain would not really register in the way that it has in the past. Simply that it's also nice to have less of those energies to work with, so that you can be more consistently focused on your intentions and goals. So I recorded a few days ago a meditation. I imagine I will call it Sacred Space, or healing space. And this meditation is all about this forgiveness, and bringing the energy of whoever we haven't forgiven in a circle, either the same person or different people, and really facing the pain that we feel, and seeing the truth of what happened, what was shared in that moment with someone else. And you can do it with yourself too, by the way. You can imagine parts of yourself. In this meditation, it's parts of somebody else. And I just thought that I might also do a meditation where you're sitting in this sacred space, this healing circle with yourself, actually, with all different parts of yourself. So I will create that too. And using this meditation, you can practice and cultivate forgiveness. And forgiveness, again, is not an intellectual concept, something that we think, oh yes, I'm forgiving because I'm a good person, or I'm going to forgive because that's the right thing to do. It's really a process, an emotional process of transmutation and understanding and consciousness. And it's interesting, I've heard many times spiritual teachers talk about how truly, when we truly forgive, we realize that there's nothing to forgive. And that is so deep, because if we realize that whatever the person was doing, they didn't know what they were really doing, not fundamentally. If they had understood the implications of their actions, they would have acted differently. Same with ourselves, that it's what's available, and then we make decisions from that. So once we understand that there's nothing to forgive, because whatever happens is really a misunderstanding. And that's very freeing, because if we realize, we can still, again, until we get there, we realize that we can be at equanimity all the time and not have aversions and attachments, and just live life consciously. And whenever something arises in our reality, just embrace it and work with it and through it. When we start to shift in those ways, then it's really a great gift that we give ourselves, a great opportunity. And instead of trying to understand and say our reality is reality, and then having to forgive someone because our reality takes precedence over theirs, and therefore they've hurt us, or even sometimes we turn against ourselves and we say that a part of ourselves is bad or wrong for doing what it did. So when we step out of that cycle of judgment and expectation and beliefs and fears, which is the cycle of the ego, then there's a true freedom, where forgiveness is not even necessary. It's already, everything is already forgiven, and nothing needs to be forgiven, because everything is understood in the light of consciousness. And when it's understood in the light of consciousness, there is no pain or hurt. There is simply what is. There is simply the reality of the different patterns and conditioning playing out. And if we don't get wrapped up in those patterns and the conditioning, then we can truly be in a state of equanimity, and everything is immediately forgiven. So how to truly forgive? practicing it, cultivating it, learning to feel safe doing it, and not quickly brushing it under the rug and saying we've forgiven. Really just like honoring that pain inside of us and those recordings and choosing to free ourselves from it. Again, I've said it before, when we forgive, we're not really, if we're forgiving someone else or a part of ourselves, we're not forgiving for them. And by virtue of forgiving, that is a gift also offered to them. And we're really doing it because we're freeing ourselves. So truly forgiving is really a gift and an opportunity to be free from pain and free from misunderstandings and misconceptions about reality, so that we can live more in the present moment. I hope this is helpful to you and that it helps you in your relationships to be able to truly forgive and to, from moment to moment, consistently be present to yourself, to your partner, and to live with more harmony and more peace. Sending you much love.